Hey, it's Rob Lightfoot, proud two-time alum of Rowan University.
And I'm Jessica Kennedy, also a two-time Rowan alum. And you're listening to
Beyond the Brown and Gold.
Rowan Radio 89.7 WGLS FM presents Beyond the Brown and Gold, a show that highlights the lives and memories of Glassboro State and Rowan University alumni. Now, here are your hosts, Rob Lightfoot and Jessica Kennedy.
Rob, today's show, Superintendent of Weymouth School District.
Yep.
Dr. Al Lewis.
I know Al.
Well, we found out that you knew Al. We didn't know that you knew Al when we scheduled the interview.
Yeah, we talked a while ago. We've been friends for a bit.
You've been taking pictures together.
Going to soirees together. We're pretty big deals.
He's a class of 2006, started his career as an elementary school teacher and then became a STEM supervisor and eventually a superintendent. And we talk a lot about what it's like to be a superintendent at almost 40. We didn't actually discuss his age, but I think he's pretty young for superintendent status.
Yeah, and I thought, you know what? I think what most people will get out of this show is this is a lesson learned here. So kids, if you want to learn, if you're looking to be an educator, I think you're going to pull a lot from what Al shares today in today's show.
Absolutely. Al was a blast to have on. We got to know him really well, really humble guy. I think my biggest takeaway was all of the support and the just very honest being willing to say, I don't know the answer to this. I need some support from other superintendents and I want to hear what other people have done. I think that's so cool. So enjoy the interview today with Dr. Al Lewis, class of 2006. Al, welcome to, back. You're always kind of around campus, right? So it's hard to say welcome back, right? When was the last time you were here?
Just a couple weeks ago, I guest lectured at my wife's classes and had a great time.
And what class was this?
This was her Intro to Technical Writing course.
Okay.
So we talked about resumes, cover letters, job interview skills. I talked about my background at Rowan and gave him a little pep talk, like prof to prof.
Love it.
And it seems like I'm always here, which is mind-boggling to me because like I always tell the students I speak to, I left Robinson Hall in 2006 and was highly confident I was never coming back.
Okay.
That, you close one chapter, you move to the next, and now I'm here so much, and we talk Rowan all the time in my house, so it's really special to me to even be back on campus, let alone giving back in any capacity, or, Dr. Carrigan, I stay real connected with the history department.
Great guy.
And, just amazing person, and I love seeing him get the accolades that are so due to him this year and last year with the big award. But it's just really special. Yeah, it feels like I'm here all the time, which is really cool.
So take us back to your journey where you thought you were just closing the door on your time here at Rowan. Take us back. How did you get here? What drew you to the university?
I transferred here in spring semester of 2003. I'd gone away to a private school in Connecticut, and my stepdad was diagnosed with lung cancer shortly before I left, and it became pretty obvious during that first semester he didn't have long to live. And I'd started coaching youth ice hockey during that time. I'd played ice hockey growing up. My cousin was playing in a middle school league, and they needed a coach. I started coming back home to visit my folks and coach his games when I could help out. And I went from a pre-law major to considering working with young people, and Rowan obviously is the gold standard for teacher prep programs in the area, let alone the nation. So took a really hard look at Rowan and another college, decided on Rowan, and transferred here and never looked back. I loved every minute of it. The professors were amazing. I talked to Dr. Carrigan at the time. He was the hardest teacher I'd ever had in my life.
Dr. Carrigan?
Yeah.
That doesn't even seem possible.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds so shocking.
Kind and sweet.
He's brilliant, but just so precise, and I'm not the most precise person in the world.
Right.
So it was historical methods was a pivotal moment for me. Let's just say that.
Did you grow up local to the university?
I did, yeah. So I grew up in Barrington in Camden County. So I knew of Rowan. I had family members who had gone to Rowan, cousins. And then actually my wife's, both their parents went to Rowan University, or Glassboro State at the time. So we're like inadvertently one of the legacy families. Because,
Love it.
As we look back, we realize how many connections we had here. But yeah, so I grew up local, lived local, commuted here all 3.5 years that I was here.
And so at one point you obviously you've switched from this pre-law mindset to wanting to be an educator in the classroom and such. At what point, you want to validate that choice. So at what point, I guess, into your Rowan career here in making that choice, did you say, okay, yeah, this is my lane, much better choice than pre-law?
I would say immediately.
Okay.
Like my first Ed Studies courses, Ed Studies 1 and 2, I was immediately like, yeah, this is definitely what I want to do. This is amazing. Working with young people was just so rewarding, and got so much out of it and felt like I had so much to give. School for me growing up obviously was like a very safe space. I was raised by a single mom at the time, and it was just always a really good place, a place I looked at fondly. And immediately, like Dr. Westcott in the education department was incredible, just absolutely incredible. And I felt like this was something that fit my skills. I was, very demonstrative and a people person. I loved the idea of being able to kind of like control my little environment, like this micro environment of a classroom. And just right away, just really felt like I had made the right choice. I loved the feel of campus. All of my professors were very supportive. Whether I needed extra help with something or whether to just share what was going on. It was obviously a very turbulent time in my life. I did end up losing my stepfather to cancer my junior year. It just, it was a pivotal moment for me. And being here and being with the people that I was placed under their care, life-changing, not to be too dramatic, but, when I look back at being here on campus, it was a really, really pivotal moment for me where I feel like I set the foundation for my life's trajectory. And I don't think had I been anywhere else, it would have been that way.
And you got to have some fun, right? Because you played some ice hockey here.
Yeah. Coach Jack and the Skewer boys and all, we had quite a time. That was another big positive to being here. They were trying to resurrect the program. At least it's my understanding, had kind of gone defunct for a number of years, and there was a group of guys putting it back together. And I wasn't the best goaltender that Rowan's ever had, that's for sure. I don't think I'll be setting any records anytime soon, but it was amazing for me, connecting me with people who I stay in touch with even to today.
Yeah.
And even now on Wednesday nights, I still skate with some younger grads from Rowan's hockey team.
All right.
And I still get to see the brown and gold, their custom gear that we definitely didn't have when we resurrected the program. I'm always busting on them. I'm like, wow, you guys got socks? We barely had socks. That's great. But yeah, just making those relationships right away and giving me something to do and stay more connected to being on campus. Being a commuter, obviously added a little layer to that where, you're not in the thick of things socially. But that let me, develop some friendships right away, which was really cool because I didn't really know anyone from my classes, beyond that.
Sure.
So
You mentioned your wife is also an alumna. So tell us your Prof Sweetheart story. How did you two meet? Did you know each other before you came to Rowan, or did you meet here?
Yeah, so we actually, unfortunately, perfectly overlapped that we were never on campus as students at the same time. So
you just ruined her day.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm
but
so
hey, they
sorry.
still have it in common.
Yeah,
so
we
that's
do. Well,
great
we are
starting point.
We consider ourselves a prof family for sure. So I was here 03 to 06, and then she was here 07 to 11, I believe.
But when you found out that she went here, you were like, yes, great starting point.
So
right?
I will say, and Ellen, if you're listening to this, I'm going to take credit, and you can yell at me later. So I actually put Rowan on her radar. She had attended another school her freshman year and was very unhappy with the program that she was in. She was kind of like me, realized after getting into it, maybe this wasn't the right path for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of said to her at the time, I said, well, you want to go and do this. She's a journalism major. I said, if you want to write and you want to do these things, why don't you come home and go to Rowan? I had such a good experience there. You'll love it. So she did in the end. She visited a few times, and then she came back and enrolled at Rowan and spent the rest of her academic career there. And again, just really cool to see now her being employed here, her love of the university and us to be able to share in that, even though we never really attended at the same time.
Yeah, sure.
And then being in totally different colleges within the university, not even really sharing a ton of buildings. But now she'll say I'm teaching in Robinson this semester. And I'm like, oh, Robinson, I love that.
That's my jam.
That's my old hangout.
Yeah, oh yeah, Robinson.
Did you see Dr. Applebaum yet?
Yeah.
Is he just wandering around?
Old Faithful is just walking around. It's all crazy.
Yeah, so it's really cool. It's something that's a integral part of our life and obviously a daily conversation about work and school here. But yeah, really weird that we never actually directly crossed paths. Although we were married her senior year at Rowan. So, I would visit her and we would, do different things while she had classes and stuff like that. And she did her master's here during COVID. And that was really cool to come in and see her give her master's presentation and the work she had done and everything and go into the student center with her and share in that moment on campus with her.
So what happens? You graduate 06. You're going out to the real world. Your first job, teaching job. Got to be excited.
Yeah.
Where do we land?
So I was placed to student teach in Voorhees, New Jersey.
Okay.
Which is where I then spent the beginning of my career and all of my teaching years. And just another thing where I look back and say, like, man, like God was really like putting the pieces together of my life to place me there. You know, I can remember that feeling of like, you get what you get. Like,
Yeah, how does that work, by the way, for those that don't know?
Yeah, so at the time, and I don't know if it's changed, but you tell them where you live, whether it's on campus or off, and they put you within a certain radius of that. So you could be placed, you know, I believe like they try and keep within 30, 45 minutes of where you live. So, you know, you think of all the towns around you and you think, okay, well, you know, being a Camden County kid, you know, there's a lot of places you could get placed. I hope it's somewhere good. I hope the person I'm placed with is a good cooperating teacher and that I learn a lot and make a good connection. And, you know, you see Voorhees being, you know, a really affluent area, really high developed area. And I can remember feeling like, oh my God, I hit the jackpot. Like I'm going to this amazing award-winning district. And then the reality sets in and you're like, I hope I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so concerned with them being good for me, but like, my gosh, I hope I can be good and make a name for myself. And I was really fortunate. Had an amazing cooperating teacher, Lauren Kearns Cassano at the time. And she just taught me everything, and she trusted me, and she, you know, gave me the ropes of, you know, here's what we do and here's how we do it. Now go do it. And I really felt like she had my back, and she let me just grow as a person. And I stayed there. I subbed there. I worked, you know, at the time there was certainly no national teacher shortage. And it took me a full year, 3/4 of a year to get a maternity leave job there. And then I never looked back. Taught there for 5 years and taught at Signal Hill Elementary off of 73 in Voorhees. And I tell people all the time, I still feel like I'm going to go back there one day. Like that feels like home to me. It feels like where, you know, I think everyone owes that allegiance to the place that gave them their big break and started their career. And in some ways, none of what follows felt real. You know, I was an administrator at 28, a superintendent at 36. Like all of it feels like a dream. And I feel like I'm going to wake up one day and still be teaching at Signal Hill and be going back to my roots. But yeah, I really lucked out. Had I, you know, been placed somewhere else, my career might look completely different.
I have two young children just starting out the elementary school journey. Tell us what it was like to come in, especially, you know, teaching is typically a female job, like many of the teachers are female. So probably the student teacher, the ones that are overseeing, are super excited when a male student comes in and wants to teach because we could use more male teachers. Tell us what the elementary school setting was like. Was it fun? Was it great to be part of those formative years? What was your favorite part about the elementary school setting?
Yeah, well, again, I can't speak enough about Dr. Westcott because him being a male instructor and having been a former male teacher, he really prepared me for that like culture shock of being, I mean, where I taught, I was the only male staff member at times, depending on who the custodian was. And so it's very different, right? It's just a different feel to be like one of like 100 people and just be the only man. But you're like the instant rock star, right? Because every kid wants to have the guy teacher. And it was definitely interesting. I can say I always thought I was at least obviously an average teacher because no one yelled at me or fired me or anything.
Yeah.
I would go in and watch my veteran teacher colleagues teach, and I would just go home and tell Ellen, like, God, I'm the worst. Like, these people are amazing, and I'm just so mediocre. And they just supported me and helped me grow as a teacher. And I was always very popular, having been the guy teacher, and I was, like, the fun teacher in the school, like, always doing crazy things, crazy costumes, crazy projects, just doing, like, silly things whenever I could find something to do. And kids eat that up. And that's half the battle, right? Like, you get them excited to come in the door. They want to be there. They want to learn. Then you can kind of get to the real meat and potatoes of what you're trying to do and teach. It was very rewarding. I can say confidently, though, the birth of my daughter my last year of teaching made me 10 times a better teacher. You know, obviously I always cared for kids and cared about kids and families.
You get it a little bit more.
Yeah, but then when I had my daughter, then I'm thinking, oh my God, I get it now. They're everyone's baby. Like it's the pride of their family. And suddenly all those things like you can have a charged meeting where somebody's really concerned about the well-being of their child. And as a teacher, you're sitting there from almost like a clinician's standpoint of, well, here's what's best and here's what research says. And sometimes it's easy to forget that piece of, but it's their baby. It's their pride and joy. They want genuinely what's best for their kid, even if it's, not what the school thinks is best. And all those things just really clicked and made sense my last year. And I carry them with me today, having to serve, 200 families where I'm at now. It makes a difference, right? To come at somebody and say, hey, look, I'm a dad. I get it. I get where you're coming from. I get how you feel about your kid and the situation. Let me help.
As a parent, too, I also like when a teacher is a parent because I think there's like a different understanding of a child and their skills and their abilities and a different kind of connection that a parent can make. So I always see that there is in the classroom, like I can see with my oldest, he's in kindergarten, when there's like a person who hasn't maybe yet had children yet and a person that does, and the different interactions. And he always goes towards the one with the kids because it's like they're a mom too a lot of the time. So it's like he goes to that. And that's working for now. We'll see how
We'll see what the game plan
we'll see
brings out
how
next
long
week.
that is for, how that works out. But so what happens after your elementary school journey?
Yeah, well, and it's funny, you'll say about like a teacher who's a parent. I'll tell my middle school students now, I'll say, we're going to talk about something. Do you want to hear from dad, coach, or the superintendent?
And who do they pick?
They always pick dad.
I was going to say, do they pick coach?
Yeah,
I would pick coach, I think.
I would have picked coach.
Sometimes
Yeah,
they pick coach, but it's usually dad, and and I'll give them like a real down to earth version of whatever it is. So it's always funny to hear people say that. I do agree. I think there's that certain level of like comfort with the kids where they're like, "Oh, that's your kid? Oh, you get me then because I'm a kid." And it's funny. My kids are in our school so much for like night events and stuff like that that the students even know them, and they have like formed friendships with some of the students. And it just helps humanize you, I think. And then you don't seem as like the big scary principal or superintendent of the building. So.
So now, since we're ranking these things, I feel like this is fair, right?
Okay.
Al, what's more exhausting? The in-person teacher of this elementary school,
This is a personal question for Rob.
yeah, or the administrator of this whole operation?
Or being a dad.
Yeah.
That's what I was. That's where I thought you were going.
No. Because I imagine it's. I mean, obviously a different set of challenges, right? Yeah. You've got students that are maybe just being unruly and just being kids, right? And you've got to manage them. And then as an administrator, you've kind of left. And this is I've said this before. I think in interviews we've done with other previous educators is the fact that you get into this field to do the work with these kids, and then the way up the ladder, sort of an education space, sort of takes you out of that space that you wanted to be in. So it's very like it's not like a regular field where you get maybe to do more of what you wanted to do. You kind of get to do less and get more paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. I would say that resonates with my experiences, and I agree. We're missing, like institutionally, we're missing something for teachers who are just exemplary teachers and want to stay teaching.
Right.
Even an instructional coach, you're still removing yourself one step from the students. So I do feel like there is something missing, and I don't really have the answer, but there's somewhere teachers need to go when they're that exemplary of teachers. And they don't want to go into administration because they are completely different.
And there's not that many, I mean, compared to teaching roles, there's not as many administrative roles, right? So there's not as much opportunity for that administrative growth.
Yeah, and the best teacher, and actually my principal at the time, when I told her, like, hey, I think I might want to be a principal one day, she reminded me of that because I kind of shared with her, like, I don't really feel like I'm an exemplary teacher. I mean, one, I've only taught 5 years, and two, I look around and I look at these other people who are amazing, and I'm not them. And she reminded me, like, well, the best teachers don't become the best principals. And
It's
vice
different
versa.
skill set, I would think.
Yeah, and vice versa, and that's okay. And it really encouraged me because I just saw myself as being really good at systems thinking and really good with people. But the teaching side of it, I felt like I understood enough, and I understood enough how to support it, but it might not have been, had I stayed in the classroom. I may never have been a master teacher because I think there are certain skills there that maybe I don't have. So I would say they're just really different. I can say as a teacher, I try as much as possible to be in classrooms because I feel like as a leader, I'm not effective unless I really deeply understand what my coworkers are experiencing.
Right.
And I need to feel that frustration of, there's this child who lacks services and we need to get them for him or her. How do we do that? And what does that feel like? You don't want to forget that feeling of like, I feel stuck waiting, right? A CST evaluation takes months. INRS takes months. In those months, the kid still needs help. The teacher still needs support. And we have to get it to them, whether it's, formalized or not. So that side of it is very stressful and very exhausting. And teaching's a very exhausting career. Very nuanced profession, very difficult.
And where does dadding rank in all of this?
Dad?
Fathering your own children, isn't it? What if you were going to
I can say thank you. My kids take after my wife, and they are both like very high achieving students and very quality people. And so being their dad is a joy. Being a dad is tiring. I would say of the three, dad, coach, and superintendent, coach has always been my favorite. Not that obviously I love being a dad, but the title of coach, like when a kid comes up, hey, coach, can you show me this? That just like I feel alive inside. And I look at myself as a leader as like the coach. Yeah. Like I'm on an equal playing field with my coworkers. I'm here to just help them get better and
like a mentor as a coach too.
Yeah. And like a no
those
judgment
kids don't
zone.
technically have to listen to you, but they want to.
Correct. Yeah. And they want to grow and I want them to grow. And that's how I look at like teacher evaluations. Like I'm not there to drop the hammer on somebody. I'm there to coach them and get them to be better. That's my role.
So let's talk about how you went from elementary school teacher to principal. You said that you were teaching for about 5 years and you said, hey, I might want to be a principal someday. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I can remember I think it was my second or third year, a colleague of mine literally tapped me on the shoulder in the copy room and kind of gave me the old pep talk like, hey, kiddo, you're a good teacher. You should consider going into administration. And I can remember at the time being like, yeah, I really like teaching. Like that's not even on my radar yet. And then over the next year or so, I remember thinking like, yeah, I mean, I'm helping a classroom of kids a year. What if I was helping a whole building, a whole district? What would that look like? Would that be a bigger impact on a community or on kids? What is truly going to be best serving them? I had already had my master's, and then I went through NJXL, which is like you don't result in a degree, result in certifications, and it's run by administrators in New Jersey, which is really amazing. And I got the supervisor cert, the principal cert, started looking for jobs, but not being in a huge rush. And I can remember in my last year of teaching, I had an offer to leave mid-year. I just couldn't do it. I just felt like I had been so connected to that group of kids that I couldn't imagine going on winter recess and not coming back.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my wife at the time, like, am I making a mistake? Like, it just didn't feel right. And not 4 months later, I interviewed in Gloucester Township, New Jersey, which is New Jersey's largest K-8 school district. And I got a job as a STEM supervisor and just absolutely fell in love with like the curriculum and instruction side of it, which was really interesting for me, having not taught very long. So now I'm, observing teachers who've been there for 25 years and they're master teachers. And now I have to give them feedback and say, you did this right. You could improve in this area.
How uncomfortable is that?
Oh, I
with
was
a guy
sweating
with like 5 years experience.
Yeah, you've been there for a cup of coffee. You're giving them advice.
Exactly. And then,
like, you're not even 30.
Young enough to be some of their, I could have been their kid.
Yeah.
And a few people even kind of jokingly told me that. And yeah, I remember I felt like I was more nervous for a teacher observation than they were.
Yeah.
I'm coming in thinking like, I need to be of value to these people. I can't just come up with something off the wall, or, it needs to be rooted in it. So I really grew as a teacher and as an administrator in that role. And just onboarding onto a really large district, 11 schools, 6,500 students, 1,000 employees. You go from I'm working in a classroom by myself to, design a professional development session for people spread out across 8 elementary schools. Good friend and colleague and Rowan grad, Dr. Jeff Christo, is still to this day my sounding board. And we started working together in 2013 in that role. And just hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. He's someone I call literally almost every day and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Tell me I'm crazy or not. Mm-hmm. And he will. And Jeff's the kind of character guy. He'll say, like, that is not how I would do it. Here's what I think we should do. And really grew in that curriculum instruction side. And then through that, I was there for 9 years, worked closely with the assistant superintendent and superintendent directly, and really got a feel for what does a superintendency look like. And I believe it was like 2020. Again, I'd been there about 7 years.
Great year to start changing your...
Well, that's the irony. So then in 2020, Ellen enrolled in her master's program here at Rowan, and I enrolled in my superintendent certification program with NJXL. And I remember us both thinking, hunkered down in the middle of March in a pandemic, thinking, are we nuts? Like, this is weird. Like, we're taking on 2 extra things for our family. Like, what are we doing? We're trying to teach our own kids at home, and my son was in kindergarten at the time. And now we're like, oh my God, that was like such a huge year for our family, because then coming out of the pandemic, obviously I became a superintendent, and Ellen became a college professor, which was her goal. Yeah, it was around that time where I thought, okay, like, I feel like I have enough of the administrative side. Now what if I prepared myself to lead a district?
Yeah.
And really had very little intentions of doing so with any sense of immediacy. Like, I thought this was maybe 10 years down the road. I was, 30, whatever at the time, 33, 34, thinking like, well, I'll get it and I'll be ready, right? And then that way, if something opens up when the kids are older and when I'm older and I'm more experienced, because even 7 years into a central office role, there's so much that goes into running a school district. You can't possibly know it all, like on the top of your hat. So I felt like it was just something, okay, I'll have the piece of paper and I'll see what happens in the future. And then in 22, very early 22, somebody handed me the posting for Weymouth. Actually, it was Dr. Christo. And he said, this would be perfect for you. He's like, you grew up in a blue-collar town. It's a blue-collar district. you're really good with small networks there. Like, you could really be what they need. And Weymouth had several superintendents over a very short period of time. They'd had a lot of turnover. They'd lost a lot of state aid. There were just a lot of things plaguing the district. Parent involvement was low. Like, their HSA went defunct during COVID, so they had no PTA. They had just nothing right now. They had just really were in need of leadership and in need of like a cheerleader. And they were hosting.
You're like, I got this. I taught elementary school. I know how to be a cheerleader,
so then I'm thinking,
right?
oh my gosh, what am I going to get into here? Like, one, are they even going to entertain me? Like, who am I? I'm a nobody. I'm a kid from Camden County. And I debated with my neighbor who's a principal in Camden County, and they were having a public forum for the town to give their feedback on what they wanted in a superintendent. So we debated, my neighbor Jimmy and I, for a couple of days, and I said, how crazy is it if I just go to the meeting and don't say anything and just listen and see, like, are people really upset?
Oh, that's the way to scout it.
Are they, are they coming out with pitchforks?
Right.
But then you're like, I don't want that.
Yeah, or is it something that might not be a fit for me?
Right.
Like, or are they looking for someone
Sure.
who's like an adept business administrator or something like that? And I went, and no one attended the meeting other than the board and their consultant. So no member of the public. So I'm sitting there and I'm trapped now. What do? Get up and leave? Like, it would be like so obvious. So I just sit there. I listen to everything. It all sounds good. Like, what they're looking for is a match for my skills. And maybe about like half hour, 45 minutes of a presentation by their consultant. And they all turn around, the whole board, all 9 people, and the consultant. They go, sir, do you have any questions? And I'm just like, no, I'm good. Thank you. I kind of just was like, don't say anything, right? Like, what am I going to say? Like, yes, I'm going to apply tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then when I went in to interview for the first interview, they all were like, it's that guy. Oh my God.
They were probably left like, who's that guy?
But at least you showed some interest, at least.
Yeah. Well,
the other candidates.
They told me after the fact that they thought maybe I was a candidate or like a reporter or something. Like, they weren't quite sure, but they knew, being such a small town, I was not a parent.
You were not a normal person that attended the meetings.
Yeah. So just very interesting that all worked out too, where I thought, like, oh God, are they going to think I'm nuts then too?
And so then walk us into your first day. You're coming on the job, right? You got your little briefcase with you. What do you do? What do you pack as a superintendent?
I don't even have a briefcase. That's how lowbrow.
I want to know what he has for lunch. A lunch.
No, but I mean, like, his very first day on the job, he's coming to a new district.
Rob's swinging his arm.
You had to be
grader.
yeah. You had to be sweating bullets there. You had to be sweating bullets going into that.
Well, I'll take 2 things. You asked about lunch. So every day I do have lunch. I have the a salad at work, like from the cafeteria.
Okay.
They support the cafeteria, and I like to send a message like, the food we serve is healthy. If I can eat it, your kids can eat it too. It's
all right, we like
good
that
food. So
my kid ain't picking the salad to eat at lunch, so definitely the chicken
chocolate
nuggets.
milk and nuggets. Yes.
I can't say my kids do that, but I would say we do serve salads every day, and the kids like them. So it's interesting you say that, because one of the last things I said to my board, they had asked me, said, well, what would be the first thing you would do upon your appointment as superintendent? And I had said I would read the school security plan, like the confidential, like, where do we go, what do we do, all that kind of stuff. Because that's the one thing you really can't bluff your way out of, right? If I come in and make a weird 50-50 call on something, I can, probably fix things and smooth it over. But if, God forbid, there's a security event on day one, how am I going to possibly explain to a parent something happened to their kid?
This is my first day. Yeah.
Right. And on, I believe it was my 3rd day in Weymouth, a child fell and broke their neck on the playground and had to be choppered off our field.
Oh, my gosh.
So there I am, knowing what to do, thank God, and knowing all these, like, what the school does, and knowing that the chopper lands on our field because of the area, and like, we're the landing zone for like the local hospitals. Like, if there's a car accident, they'll call us and say, like, someone's being choppered. We're going to land on your field in 30 minutes. Be ready. And so my board said that, like, wow, you were right about that one. Like, that really did come to fruition. And that is literally the first thing I did, is I reviewed all the things in the security plan so that I would know. And then the second thing I did was, we had an amazing curriculum director there who was there for 22 years, Helene Fulmer. And I sat with her for hours and hours and just said, basically, like, tell me what I need to know, both like how we do things and then why are they done that way. Because every district has that unique culture of, there's these kooky things that make no sense to an outsider. And then when you learn the history of things and the culture of things, they suddenly make sense. And you realize, like, the age-old expression, like, in your first year, don't change anything. Yep. Don't even change the candy in the vending machine. Yeah. That's true. We actually had a vending machine that was empty and no one would pick up. And it was like, no one had used it for 20 years. We had to, like, contact somebody to just get it out of the teacher's lounge. It was just taking up space. But, yeah, it was a lot of learning that first year. And I meant what I said. I told the staff, like, don't expect any sweeping changes in year one.
Which gave them, I'm sure, some peace of
Comfort.
mind.
Yes, I had people tell me like, "Oh, thank God!" Like we were worried, especially I think a young guy comes in and they think maybe like, "Oh, the person's going to come in and try and like revolutionize the district and make a name for themselves." And I told them I'm really there to serve them. I look at leadership as service. I believe I was called to a life of service. I always say my life verse is John 13:14, where Jesus washes the disciples' feet. I feel like I was called to wash feet. I know it seems kind of like tongue in cheek, but I genuinely meant it. And I spent that whole first year just learning what people needed, what was working, what was not working. And I learned very quickly that what they really just needed was a decent, good person who just wanted to help. And, coming from Gloucester Township, I felt like I had been kind of dissuaded from that like nice guy style of leadership. Because in a larger system, I do think there's complications to it, and the rules have to be the rules, and there has to be some level of rigidity to that. But seeing the dramatic renaissance of Weymouth has validated that for me. It has been a very difficult job. I will be honest. It has been the most difficult job of my life, but it has also been the most rewarding. When you say like what's more exhausting, like teacher or administrator, knowing all of the behind the scenes drama and baggage and trauma in the families and employees and all those stuff overwhelmingly weighs on me at times. And to be completely candid, like there are some nights I just wake up in the middle of the night and then your mind's racing with, this person has this thing going on, this person's marriage is falling apart, this kid needs this service, or this happened to the family, there was a suicide in the family, the parents incarcerated. All that stuff weighs on you while you're then trying to drive learning. Right, because it's the ultimate goal is for the institution to be known for high academic performance. But you don't get there without caring for the people and caring for all the things that go into being able to learn. Because we know, right, Maslow's hierarchy, if we don't meet people's basic needs, everybody, kids and adults, they're not going to be at their best. And it's my job to coach them and get them to be at their best.
One of the things that I'm hearing though through your session here, because you're mentioning Jeff Christo, Rowan alum, Jimmy the neighbor, we don't know where he's from, but what the heck. You're putting a lot of people around you. Talk about the idea of surrounding yourself with the right people to kind of help you make some of these decisions, and the idea of mentorship and the idea of fellowship with others to kind of help you get to better outcomes rather than doing it solo.
Yeah, absolutely. One, I always assume I'm the dumbest person in any room I'm in because, one, it's usually true. And two, it allows me to ask a lot of really good questions.
Yeah.
And I will ask very plain, very dumb questions in order to tease those things out. And you're right. I'm only as good as the people around me. And I can even see that now just in the hires that we've made and then the informal network of support. In Atlantic County, we have an amazing executive county superintendent, Leslie White-Corsi, who is a resource to me, and I can go to her and say, like, hey, this happened, I want to make you aware, and she'll give me some advice or some guidance on what's been done in the past. And same with her staff. Devin Blackwell is amazing. He just recently earned his PhD. And, Dr. Blackwell is somebody I can call and say, like, hey, Devin, like, what do you think about this, like, programmatic initiative, this educational initiative? And he'll give me some honest advice. Then there's those network of other superintendents who I go to, and some like Jeff who are not superintendents, but I know are like very, very highly effective leaders. And I'll run ideas by them, whether it's something like reactionary, like, hey, this was reported to me by an employee. What have you done in the past? Because I recognize, like, I'm very new at this. Even in year 3, I'm very, very new at this. Pulling those people in and getting varied opinions, because I know my superintendents who can be a tough cookie, and I know some superintendents are a little bit more lenient, and I want to get that like triangulation of here's what I think I should be doing, here's what I think my reaction should be, but now you guys tell me, like, what am I doing here? And then the flip side of it is, and then people do that for me too, like where they'll call and they'll say, hey, I'm a brand new superintendent, what did you do your first year? Like, help me out here. So I feel like there's like that natural support where everybody sits alone at the top of their district, and it can be kind of lonely. I'm really blessed. Michelle Mascali is my curriculum director. She's somebody I brought on this year to replace Helene because she retired. And, having those like really, really highly effective leaders like Michelle, where I go in and say, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? Let's bounce ideas off of each other. You need that because you need to get out of your own way sometimes and not be too pigeonholed into how you think. And the problems are too complex. They're not that simple. And it's actually one of the things I really like about the job, which is almost every day I'm sitting there going like, yeah, what do you do when that happens? Like, that is weird. I've never heard of that before.
Let me go to the wheel and spin it.
Yeah, well, I think that's
like in Gloucester
great.
Township, we had, like somebody resigned and then unresigned. Can you unresign?
I don't know that.
I don't know. Well, then, you learn, like, well, it depends on the circumstances. It depends on what they did and what they said and the terms of their employment and all these things where you're like, I love that stuff where we all like to act like things are so black and white and there's a rule for this and a rule for that.
A lot of gray.
It's all that gray in between of the circumstances. And
this is where maybe the law was going to pay off for you a little bit. You like that gray, right? He likes that to play in that little space.
It sounds like you're really open to the feedback and support of others, which I think is great because you would think that once you're in that role, you're like, I got this. Or maybe less open to the feedback and more like just trying to kind of handle it on your own because you're in this leadership position. How do you think you wound up? Have you always been somebody that's kind of been great about tapping into your support system throughout your whole life?
No, that's been growth for me too, like personal growth. As a teenager, I think we're all a little bit too brash. Like I was, captain of our hockey team, and I was student council president. I thought I was, just the most amazing guy ever, I guess. And I think we all feel that way when we're younger. And, life humbles you. And like I said, my wife is my rock. She's somebody who helps ground me, and she always ribs me about certain things and keeps me a little bit more humble than I would probably be otherwise. But no, I think you realize through life's events, right, that you don't have all the answers. And like I said, the issues are far too complex and far outside of my wheelhouse. Like I just was a curriculum and instruction nerd. I just love teaching and learning. So now when somebody says the flame controller on the boiler broke and it's going to be $10,000, I don't know. Is that how much a flame controller costs? I don't know. Like, let's go get a couple of quotes. Like those are the things that get me excited about, like, let's problem solve a little bit. Yep. And then I realize in that the constant unknown nature of everything, I can't possibly just guess those things correctly, right? Like that's playing the lottery. And the result is people's livelihoods and people's well-being, and I can't be that cavalier and be that arrogant to say, yeah, I got this because I became a superintendent. I mean, I'm no different than any one of my coworkers. I just happen to have gone and gotten the credentials I need to hold this role. Any one of them could hold it as well, and I have to recognize that and say, this is bigger than me. I mean, I often talk about, I was asked my first year, would Weymouth go bankrupt? As I took it over, it was possibly in deficit spending. And I told my board and I told the county, I said, whether I'm here 5 years, 50 years, or whatever, I can guarantee you one thing, I will not be Weymouth's last superintendent. Like that will not be my legacy as a leader, that I shut a district down. The role is so much bigger than just any one person. I stand on the shoulders like Donna Van Horn, like somebody who was a superintendent at Weymouth a very long time and was a great leader there. I'm just part of 100 people or more that's going to come through that office, and I'm just the custodian of really the taxpayers' investment in the children and in the community. And I think that's very humbling, the weight of that. I literally was speechless when the consultant called me to say that I was the candidate of choice, because I would have bet money it would never have been me in a million years. It's just so humbling. You immediately sit there and go like, oh my God, like I need help. I can't do this on my own. Like, there's just no way. In particular, like I said, Jeff was a big part of that in Gloucester Township. 9 years working, literally physically next door to each other. He helped round me out as a person. And I always tell him he's like the kingmaker. I always tease him. He's the reason I'm a superintendent. He's the reason I've had success as a superintendent. But then beyond that, it's the gravity of the situation that there are some days still. I just pinch myself and I'm like, my God, I'm a superintendent. Like, what am I doing? How did I get here? Like, this is amazing. I just went from being lucky that I graduated undergrad. I was the first college graduate in my immediate family. Like, I'm the only person in my family with a doctoral degree. Like, I just sit there and I go, like, I can't believe this is me and this is my life. It just seems so unreal. And I realize it is so much bigger than me.
You're a young guy, already superintendent. Do you think about that?
Yeah, I do. I do. The assistant superintendent I worked under, Tim Tro, when I told him, I said, hey, look, I think I might be getting this job. Like they said they'd call me, blah, blah, blah. And what do you think? And he said, well, the superintendency is not a marathon. It's a sprint. Are you ready to sprint for the last 25 years?
Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah.
And I can remember really thinking and praying on that and calling my father-in-law and praying with him and saying, like, if this is what God has for me, I can't say no, right? Like I feel called, I need to be led. And if I'm led to do this, I'm going to do it. And I can remember asking Ellen too, before I formally accepted the position, saying like, are you okay with this? Like, this is going to be life-changing for us. This is not, I go in and I punch out and I have this job and I do this here. Like, this is going to uproot, somewhat of our family's operations, and that will inevitably fall on you, Ellen. And it weighs on me at times where I'm like, wow, this is going to be, hopefully my legacy of my career. I will have spent far more time being a superintendent than anything else, when really all I set out to be was a teacher. And I thought that would be, and it is a great job, and it would have been a good career. But no, I do think that they're like, wow, I was really young, and I didn't, you don't feel young at the time. Like, you're like, yeah, I got an administrative job. And now I'm like, I wasn't even 30. Like, what was I thinking? Like, the arrogance to presume that I could lead someone who had been teaching for 25 years. And then even now, like I said, I was 36, and we always get the same reaction out of people because I try not to lead with what I do for a living. Sometimes people will say, oh, what do you do? And I'll just say, oh, I work in an elementary school. And I hope to just kind of leave it at that because
what do you do?
And then sometimes people will poke and prod and say, oh, well, like, what do you do? And always when I say, well, I'm a superintendent, even now at 40, they're kind of like, really? Like, wow. Like, and I'll have people even say, like, well, you're really young, aren't you? Because I think people think of like, an older person who's in their 50s and like towards the end of their career per se. But yeah, it's a very weird feeling to think.
Let me interpret that. What they're saying is they are ticked off.
They're jelly.
They're so jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly.
They're like, oh man, this guy's killing it at this young age, and I'm here. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Do you ever think about going back in the classroom? Like, well, how do you stay connected to that part of it?
Yeah, I do visit classrooms nonstop, and I did even as a curriculum supervisor, because even that is very far removed from like the day-to-day operations, and I see myself as still like my heart is still in the classroom, and it's like the burden. It's on me to make sure the classrooms are equipped in a way that they can run effectively, and I can't really see that unless I am physically in that classroom for some sustained amount of time. So yeah, I'm in classrooms all the time, talking with teachers all the time. And I'd like to think, and I see evidence of like that full transparency where I can encourage people to like speak candidly around me and, tell them all the time, like, tell me the truth. Don't just say like things are going really good, because then I can't really help you. Like, tell me what you need so I can
sound
get
like what
it
I
for
say
you.
to my oldest. If you don't tell me what's wrong, I can't help you.
Yeah.
You can just bury your head and go silent.
And what does he say?
Nothing. Sometimes he'll tell me before bed, or if we're in the car and it's quiet. But
and sometimes stuff gets to me secondhand, because same thing, right? People, there's that natural tendency of like, well, hey, this person's my, the employer side of things. Like, I don't want to tell them I'm struggling. And that's where we put other things in place so that way they can get the help they need.
Yeah, the systems in place.
Partnerships we have in place, systems we have in place. We're just getting through, like, whether it's through the union president or whether it's through, Michelle, the curriculum director, they feel more comfortable sometimes with those people because they're not like the top, so to speak. As much as I try to destigmatize that, I know that there's always that natural feel of, well, don't tell Al, like, he might then like take a point off your evaluation or something. And that's not true, but I get why people feel that way. Mm-hmm. I certainly felt that way. Like, I would not have gone to Mr. Bilodeau for anything in Gloucester Township unless I absolutely needed to, because you're like, hey, like, this person's really, really busy. They're running this massive district. They don't need to hear from me that I got to go to the dentist next week, right? Like, I need to let those things just slide.
What are we doing outside to de-stress, to do? Well, I mean, you're in the all these heavy decisions sometimes. What are we doing on the outside? What's relaxed fit out? Remember you used to see your teacher growing up outside?
Yeah, like in
and it would totally throw you off. Like, what, Mrs. Stepp shops here?
She gets food too.
She gets food too at IGA? Really?
I didn't know my teacher ate.
Right, I didn't know that.
So weird.
And they're
with their kids.
She's not wearing her regular school stuff. She's got jeans on. So talk to us. What's relaxed fit Al look like?
So
it's funny. What are you doing on the sides?
Yeah, well, I'm going to give a shout out to the Earl, which is our Wednesday night skate. It's our elite adult rental hockey league. Like I said, it's a lot of Rowan grads, like younger guys in their 20s and 30s, and some guys from other leagues and teams and all. We have this really amazing, really high, fast-paced skate on Wednesday nights. And Commissioner Crespo runs a tight ship. He keeps it real organized, so it's like always like a full roster. It's really fast, really competitive, especially for me. Like I said, I was not the world's best goaltender, so it's like a stretch for me to play with a group of guys that good. But it's just this 2-hour window where I notify my board president. They know Wednesday night from about 9 to about midnight, I am off limits. And they know, like, nothing's going to get done. Like, if there's an emergency, I will get to it when I get back, or they can call the board secretary. But it's that window of time where I can just be me. I can just completely turn my brain off, and it's so competitive.
You don't have to be in charge.
Correct. I'm not in charge. I'm one of the guys. I'm just sitting there joking around with folks. They're just a really good group of guys. Guys from all all different areas of my life too, like these connections I've made. It's so competitive to the point like I can't think. Like I'm so focused on the level of play and trying to not embarrass myself in front of them that I like have no choice but to be totally mentally engaged in where I am, what I'm doing. I'm at Hollydale, which is where I spent a lot of my years growing up and even as a coach. And the focus there is like, it's just this freeing 3-hour window of my life where I can just be Al. I can just be just a goof off and have fun and be one of the boys. And, it's crazy because I always tell them that. I'm like, the Earl's my favorite time of the week. It's incredible because it's just this total shut off of everything else, all the noise. And hockey was always that for me growing up. I was at practice the day after my stepdad died because that's what we did.
Yeah,
You go and you skate. And unless your arm's falling off, you better be there because there's 20 other guys on the team that are waiting for you to go stand between the pipes. So that's always been like this place where I could kind of like hide in my life in a good way. And that's what the Earl is for me right now. That is like my 100% what my like de-stress is in my life. And then beyond that, I coach my daughter's women's hockey team, the Philadelphia Liberties. We have a great group of coaches that I work with. And that is really rewarding for me because, again, I get to put my teacher hat back on and just be like that coach working directly with the kids. And that's really rewarding for me. Our GM, Mark Wilk, he really he keeps everything really positive and really like culture oriented, which is really near and dear to my heart. But again, I'm not in charge. I don't really have to do like all that kind of stuff. I can just worry about running X's and O's and being with the girls. And they're a great group of girls. It's phenomenal people, phenomenal families. And if I'm not in a suit, I'm in either goalie gear or coach gear, and I love it. There's like no in between. So like if someone were to see me outside of the office, it's like athletic, pants.
All right.
It's very, very casual.
Really chill.
So the students and the parents in the district are both like, whoa, Al's dressed in normal clothes.
Yeah.
He's at Target. He's buying Christmas presents. What?
Yeah, I don't know. He's walking out of Pure Hockey with a bunch of sticks. Like, what's he doing? He's in R&M Hockey Shop again. What's he doing? I look forward to it every week. I have to be honest. It's great. It's just a great group of guys and a great time.
And you continue to be involved with Rowan.
Yeah.
Speaking to Ellen's classes.
Yeah, talk to Ellen's classes. We do a lot of alumni events. Dr. Carrigan featured me on the Project 100. Actually, I just showed it to my curriculum director today because I found out that James Reyna, who's a fellow Atlantic County District Superintendent, is a Rowan grad and a history major at that. So he was today's Project 100. I shot him an email and said, like, hey, wow, like we both had Dr. Morshauser. Like, that is so cool. Like, he was one of my favorite professors. And then I sent mine to Michelle and I said, hey, do you want to see what I look like with hair? Here's a picture of me.
Yeah, what year was this one on this Project?
That was 06, yeah.
Okay. This is your college picture.
Yeah. My wife said, you have lost a lot of hair. It was like a George Costanza. Look at this picture. Look at this man.
Who is this man?
You have lost a lot of hair. But so we stay connected. We've sponsored a few small scholarship things and given back to the community. That's something that's on our radar too, as we, as a family, as we grow. And we support the hockey teams, their fundraising and stuff like that. And we come to events and everything. I just talked to Joanne Connor about coming back for the soiree this year. Right. And it's really special to me. It really is. Not to be like too corny, but Rowan's is a big part of our lives for both of us, and then collectively now as a family. And it's just so cool to be able to give back because people paved the way for kids like me to go to college, and I want to make sure that I pave the way for somebody else and pay it forward a little bit.
Rob, how often in your job do you call other people and say, "What should I do?"
Are we really saying this now on the air? No, because it's frequent.
Really?
Yeah. Because there's certain things, that, working in a more complex space, I guess now, there's some things that I'm not familiar with. So I have to kind of like consult people.
I know. That's I like that part of Al being so open about that. Because I think that just makes you like a person. Like you don't know every challenge that you're going to be faced with.
Yeah, basically want to work for this guy. Yeah. Doesn't he sound so cool to work for? But
are you going to go be principal somewhere?
No, I can't. I don't have that patience. but he seems so open to like you said, to feedback, to listening to others' opinions, and is actually seeks them out,
right?
Which is
really
so
grounded.
rare with leadership. And it is the importance of networking. That's why I said at the open that if you're looking to be an educator, that this is the perfect episode for you, because the fact that he gave you kind of a look under the hood for what his classroom experience was like, and then how he kind of moved up the ranks, but then the importance of mentorship and creating that strong network around you to kind of help you go. And not for nothing, speaking of networking, He's a good follow on LinkedIn. So I recommend everybody follow. Al's on there. He's dancing up a storm on there. He's great.
I followed him during the show, and I'm super pumped to see his content now. So
Yeah, what do you follow more?
you will be too.
You've been listening to Beyond the Brown and Gold on Rowan Radio 89.7 WGLS FM. You can find more episodes on your favorite podcasting platforms by searching for Beyond the Brown and Gold or Rowan Radio On Demand.